Hello everyone, a warm welcome to one and all. Okay, now we are entered term 2. We are going to begin with a new chapter, dual nature of radiation and matter. Firstly, what is the meaning of radiation and matter? Okay, so radiation like waveforms, all the waves mostly like light wave, EM wave, all will come under radiation. So radiation will exist in the form of wave, okay, whereas matter, all the materials whatever we are able to see, the board, chair, chalk piece, are all known as matter. The very basic particle of a matter, we can say it as electron. Okay, now in this chapter we are going to see that dual nature of radiation and dual nature of matter, that is, a radiation can exist as a particle. Similarly, a particle can also possess a waveform. Okay, so about that only we are going to learn in this chapter. Okay, the basic characteristics of wave. Okay, we would have learned in our lower classes, that is, a wave will possess certain frequency and wavelength. Okay, so these are the basic characteristics of a wave, whereas the basic characteristic for a matter, material, will be mass and their momentum. So in this chapter we are going to prove, or we are going to learn, that light or radiation, so far we have learned that they exist as a form of a wave, will actually possess momentum. Okay, when they are possessing momentum, we will say they are exhibiting the material property. Likewise, a particle, a electron, okay, electron can also have wave nature, by which they can possess wavelength, by which we are going to prove that even electron can behave as a waveform. Okay, so we will begin with this chapter. Firstly, we have to understand what are free electrons. Okay, so when you consider a metal surface, all the material or a metal, they are made up of atoms, molecules, atoms, and subatomic particles are electrons, protons and neutrons, right? So in a particular atom, nucleus will be there in the middle, and around it electron will be revolving, right? Now there are certain electrons which are loosely bound to the nucleus. Okay, they will be pulled by proton, that is the positive charge of the nucleus, but they are loosely bound. They are they can easily move around the metal surface, but they cannot escape out of the metal surface. Those loosely bound electrons are known as free electrons. Okay, the electrons which are capable enough to move freely inside the metal surface are known as free electrons. Through this picture, okay, so here a nucleus is depicted by a red color, and around it an orbit is there. Around an orbit, electron is moving. When you look at it, electron is capable enough to jump to another atom. Okay, but within the metal surface itself, they are able to move away. Okay, so these are known as free electrons. Okay, then the next parameter that we have to know, these are the basic parameters we have to learn before entering to the chapter. Okay, the next parameter we have to learn is work function. Okay, what do you mean by work function? We had free electrons, right? Free electrons can rotate or revolve inside the metal surface. These free electrons, after gaining minimum energy, they can escape out of the metal surface. What is that minimum energy? That is known as work function. Okay, the minimum energy required by an electron to escape out of the metal surface is known as work function. Okay, and it is usually measured in electron volt. Okay, EV represents electron volt. So the SI unit of work function is electron volt, and you can convert this electron volt into joule, where 1 electron volt is equal to 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 joule. Okay, then the next thing that we are going to see is electron emission. So in work function, what we have seen, electrons after gaining certain amount of energy can eject out of the metal surface, right? So that particular phenomena where electrons can eject out of the metal surface is known as electron emission. Okay, so there are 4 types of electron emission. Okay, they are thermionic emission, secondary emission, photoelectric emission and field emission. Okay, so once again I repeat, the process where electrons can eject out of the metal surface is known as electron emission, and this process can be occurred in 4 different ways. They are thermionic emission, secondary emission, photoelectric and field emission. Okay, so this picture actually depicts where an electron can be ejected out. Okay, you can see photons beam above threshold. We will be learning about this process actually in our lesson. So this is a metal surface. So in this metal surface, photons are actually particles of light wave. Okay, they will be falling on this metal surface, and these electrons which are capable enough to move freely, inside the metal surface, gain energy from these photons and they get ejected out, and those electrons are called as photoelectrons. Okay, so this is how usually electron emission occurs. Okay, now the first type of emission is thermionic emission. From the very name itself, we can understand what is thermionic emission, right? Thermal means heat. Okay, so the electrons which are located on the metal surface will gain energy from heat, and that energy will be used up by the electron to overcome the work function. They will be gaining energy to escape out of the metal surface, and then they get ejected out. And those kind of electrons where they get energy from heat and ejected out are known as thermions. Okay, so this picture actually depicts a thermionic process where we are supplying heat energy to the metal surface. Okay, there are free electrons located on this metal surface, and we apply heat. Through the heat process, they are gaining energy and they are ejected out as thermions. Okay, then the second process is known as secondary emission. Okay, here the basic thing is everywhere the free electrons which are located on the metal surface, they are gaining energy, and after gaining energy they are ejected out. So in all these types of emission, the process where they get energy matters. Okay, so in the previous case we have seen they are getting energy from heat. Now here a fast moving primary electron, okay, a primary electron which is moving very fastly. So if it is moving very fast, what does it mean? They will have velocity, hence they will have kinetic energy. Those kinetic energy of the primary electrons will be imparted to the secondary electrons. They get energy and then eject out from the metal surface. So this is an example for secondary emission, where you have a metal surface and free electrons exist there, and these high speed electrons, they are known as primary electrons. High speed matters here, fast moving electrons. When they are fastly moving, it means that they will have higher amount of kinetic energy. What is the formula of kinetic energy? Half mv square, right? So when they are moving very faster, their velocity will be higher, so their kinetic energy will be higher. Those energy will be transmitted to the electrons, that is secondary electrons, and after gaining energy they will be ejected out, and those electrons are called as secondary electrons, right? Then the next type is known as photoelectric emission. Okay, so here what happens? Here energy is gained by an electron by a light wave. Photo means light, right? Photo means light. So the light is giving energy to the electron, and after gaining energy, electron is being emitted. So here atom is being depicted where it has many orbits, and in the orbits electrons are located. Now this waveform is a light. Light comes and falls on the orbit. Actually it is passing through many different orbits, but if there is no electron there, it goes and hits wherever the electron is. It can pass even through the gaps between the electrons. When you look at the first orbit, you have electrons on the opposite ends only. So it can pass through the gap. Even in the second orbit, when you check, it is passing through the gap. And finally, it is reaching an inner orbit. And there, the photon which possesses energy is giving its energy to the electron. So the electron is using the energy by the photon to overcome the work function, and the remaining amount of energy is used to move away as kinetic energy. So this particular process is known as photoelectric emission. And the final process is field emission. Okay, here we are going to supply everywhere. Electrons are gaining energy and then they are getting ejected out, right? So here electrons will get energy when we apply a strong electric field. Okay, so this diagram depicts the electric field emission. Okay, you will have a metal surface and metal surface with free electrons. This strong electric field will impart energy to the free electrons. They gain energy and then they escape out. So these are the types of emission. We will continue with the photoelectric effect and then the experimental part and the effect of frequency, potential, intensity on photoelectric current. Okay children, so as I said, we are going to learn about the experimental study of photoelectric effect. Okay, there were two scientists named Hallock and Leonard. They have performed various experiments and activities to learn about the photoelectric effect. We have just now seen the meaning of photoelectric emission and photoelectric effect, right? So the free electrons will be gaining energy from the light, and that energy will be used up by the electron to overcome the work function and then to get ejected. And they were observed various phenomena like they have observed photoelectric current, and with respect to frequency, potential, the photoelectric current was varying. Okay, so now we are going to see the experimental procedure of it. Okay, so they have taken a evacuated glass tube. Meaning of evacuated glass tube is it will not have, it is like made up of vacuum. There will not be any air molecules. So a evacuated glass tube is considered. Like this. Okay, and then this glass tube will be connected to a quartz window. Quartz is a crystal like thing. It can allow the current, it can allow the light to pass through them, right? So this evacuated glass tube is connected to a quartz window. Now a light source is being placed here, and further inside this glass window there were two metal plates placed. One was a emitter metal plate and the other one was a collector metal plate. Okay, so this one is going to be the emitter plate. I am naming it as A. Okay, and on the other side there is another metal plate which is known as collector plate. I am naming it as C. Okay, now as the light comes and falls on this metal surface, the free electrons which is present on the metal surface will gain energy and then they eject out. Okay, and they will be moving towards the collector plate, and this collector plate can attract the electrons when it is connected to a positive terminal of the battery. Okay, so further this collector plate will be connected to a ammeter and then to a commutator. Through the commutator we are going to connect it to a battery, and this emitter plate will be connected through the battery through the commutator. Okay, and here a voltmeter is also connected in parallel to measure the potential difference across the circuit. Okay, so here, so a commutator, a 4 plugs will be there, across which we are going to connect a battery and further to a rheostat, and this rheostat will be placed here. Okay, now this is how the experimental procedure was. So a source means which can produce the light waves, and those light waves will fall on the emitter plate. On falling on it, electrons on the metal surface gain energy and electrons eject out, and this is a collector plate connected to a battery. Now there is no connection, it is open. You can connect it the collector plate is connected here and battery's positive terminal is here, negative terminal is here. When I connect like this, I am connecting a battery's positive to collector plate. Then what happens here? This collector plate will be acting like a positive terminal, this will be acting like a negative terminal. So obviously electrons will get attracted. Then based on this, what Hallmark and Lenard did is, they have varied the intensity and frequency of the light and plotted a graph and observed them. Okay, by the meaning of varying the frequency and intensity of light, what do we mean? Okay, actually we can vary the intensity of light by varying its watt. Okay, if I connect a yellow color bulb of 100 watt initially, okay, then its intensity will be, say, some value. Okay, when I increase the watt, if I connect to a 200 watt bulb, then its intensity is increased. Okay, you can increase the intensity of any light by increasing its watt. Okay, if I connect to a 500 watt bulb, then I have increased the intensity of the source, then I am checking the emission of photoelectrons. So whenever we say we are changing the intensity, I am changing the watt here. Okay, then what else they did? They have varied the frequency of the light. How can you vary the frequency of the light? Based on the color. For example, UV or IR or gamma rays, they will all have different frequencies. And by varying the frequencies, actually by varying the color of the light, instead you can connect it with a yellow color bulb, blue color bulb, red color bulb. So by that you can vary the frequency of the source. After varying the frequency of the source, you are going to note down like how many electrons are ejected, that can be observed through the photo current through ammeter. Okay, so they have varied intensity and frequency and also varied the potential. Okay, varying the potential. Now you can see positive terminal of the battery is connected to collector plate and negative terminal of the battery is connected to emitter plate. Actually you can change the polarities. Okay, how do you change the polarity? By reversing the commutator. That's the usage of commutator here. Okay, so if I connect it this way, I have reversed the polarity. Then what happens here? Now the polarity has changed, collector plate has become negative and emitter plate becomes positive. Now by changing the polarity, you can vary the potential, and what happens to the emission of photoelectrons was observed. Actually related to this, we will be learning 4 different graphs. That is effect of, the first one is effect of intensity, second one is effect of frequency. Okay, the symbol of frequency is nu. Third one is effect of potential. And finally the fourth graph will be telling us the relation between potential and frequency. Relation between potential V0 and frequency nu. Okay, so actually in this I have explained the experimental procedure. Once again, I want you to remember, we can change the intensity of light by varying the watts, and we can change the frequency of the light by varying the color of the source light. So this process is actually instantaneous process. Before you connect the battery also, when the light source is on, suddenly or immediately as it is on, electrons are emitted out. Okay, so we have a experiment, like the diagrammatic view of this photoelectric effect, where you can see light falls on this emitter plate. This is the emitter plate, light falls on it and then it ejects out electrons. Those electrons are attracted by a collector plate here. Further, it is connected to a positive terminal, right? So it will get attracted and you can see the bulb glowing. further it moves on to the plate to complete the circuit. So this is just an description or depiction of a photoelectric effect. How does it occur? Okay, so we will continue with the graphs related to this effect in our next part. Thank you.